A billionaire handed his unlimited credit card to a struggling single mother outside a grocery store and walked away. Less than 2 hours later, a transaction alert flashed on his phone. It wasn't designer clothes. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't electronics or a luxury hotel suite. It was something that dropped him to his knees in his penthouse, tears streaming down his face for the first time in decades. What she purchased in those 24 hours would shatter everything he believed about human nature, expose the lies his father had drilled into him since childhood, and prove that sometimes the poorest people possess the richest hearts, a truth that would transform both their lives forever. Before we continue, comment your city right now. I want to know where in the world this story is reaching. And kindly hit that subscribe button, because you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Now, let's dive in. 41-year-old Darius Emmanuel Whitmore had stopped believing in human goodness the day his father died. Standing in his penthouse office overlooking Philadelphia's glittering skyline, Darius barely noticed the view anymore. The floor-to-ceiling windows stretched 12 feet high, offering a panorama that real estate agents called breathtaking and that he called Tuesday. His reflection stared back at him. Expensive suit tailored to perfection, watch worth more than most people's cars, success worn like armor. But the man in the glass looked hollow, like someone had scooped out everything vital and left only the shell. CEO of Whitmore Global Enterprises, $9.4 billion net worth. Second-generation wealth built on his father's real estate empire and his own tech innovations. Forbes 400. Philanthropist of the Year, 3 years running. On paper, Darius Emmanuel Whitmore was extraordinary. In reality, he was drowning in wealth, but starving for meaning. The penthouse felt like a mausoleum. 3,500 square feet of marble, imported leather, and art worth millions hanging on walls that echoed with expensive emptiness. He owned vacation homes in Aspen, Miami, and Martha's Vineyard, places he visited twice a year, if that. Multiple houses, but no home. Surrounded by luxury, suffocated by isolation. His father, Emmanuel Whitmore Sr., had taught him one lesson above all others. Trust no one, especially the desperate. The old man had clawed his way out of poverty through ruthlessness and suspicion, building an empire on the belief that kindness was weakness and vulnerability was suicide. Even on his deathbed, cancer eating through his body, Emmanuel Sr. had gripped Darius's hand with surprising strength and whispered, "Poor people aren't noble, son. They're dangerous. Give them opportunity and they'll bleed you dry without a second thought. Poverty doesn't build character. It reveals the thief hiding in every human heart. Promise me you'll remember that." Darius had promised, and he'd kept that promise for 6 years. Every charitable donation from Whitmore Global was filtered through legal teams for maximum tax benefit. Every act of giving was calculated against potential return on investment, public image, political capital, social currency. He'd never once looked poverty in the face and simply helped. Not without contracts, not without conditions, not without protecting himself first. Because his father had been right, hadn't he? Desperation bred exploitation. The poor weren't victims deserving compassion. They were liabilities waiting to happen. Better to keep them at arm's length, manage them through intermediaries, help them systematically, but never personally. Darius remembered being 12 years old, watching a homeless man outside their building searching through a trash can. Young Darius had grabbed a $20 bill from his dresser and run downstairs, his heart full of that naive compassion children possess before the world teaches them better. He'd pressed the money into the man's weathered hand, smiled, felt like a hero. His father had dragged him back upstairs by his collar. "That's how they get you, son," Emmanuel Sr. had said, his voice cold with disappointment. "Never show weakness to the desperate. You give them $1 today, tomorrow they'll demand 10. Next week they'll be at our door expecting a handout. Kindness isn't kindness to people like that. It's blood in the water. They can smell it, and they'll destroy you for it." Darius had never tried to help anyone again. Not directly, not personally, not without layers of lawyers and accountants creating distance between his wealth and anyone who might exploit it. Now, standing in his penthouse at 41, he wondered if his father had protected him or poisoned him. Because Darius Emmanuel Whitmore had everything money could buy and nothing that mattered. He was successful, powerful, untouchable, and utterly, devastatingly alone. Tonight, that was about to change. Though he didn't know it yet, his entire understanding of humanity was about to be shattered by a woman counting coins outside a grocery store and a 7-year-old boy clutching a worn teddy bear. Tonight, he would learn whether his father had taught him truth or simply passed down unhealed wounds disguised as wisdom. Then he saw them, and something inside him cracked. It was nearly 9 p.m. on a bitter February evening when Darius finally left the office, exhausted from a 7-hour board meeting that had solved nothing and cost everyone's patience. His driver was off for the night, so he'd taken his own car, the Bentley he rarely drove himself, and stopped at the upscale grocery store 3 blocks from his penthouse for coffee and something resembling actual food. He was pulling into the parking lot when he saw the security guard approach them. A woman and a small boy huddled near the entrance, just outside the automatic door's sensor range. The woman was black, maybe mid-30s, wearing clothes that had once been professional, but were now worn thin and stained with the grime of survival. The boy, 7, maybe 8, pressed against her side, clutching a teddy bear that had seen better decades. His jacket was too thin for February in Philadelphia, and even from 20 feet away, Darius could see him shivering. "Ma'am, I've told you before," the security guard said, not unkindly, but firmly. "You can't stay here if you're not buying anything. Store policy." The woman was counting coins in her palm, her hands shaking so badly, the quarters kept slipping through her fingers. She didn't look up. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, her voice carrying that particular exhaustion that comes from months of apologies. "We're going. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for taking up space." Darius sat in his car, engine running, heat blasting, watching. This was the moment he'd drive away. This was what he always did. Acknowledge the problem existed, acknowledge it wasn't his responsibility, and continue with his evening. Homelessness was a systemic issue requiring systemic solutions, not individual intervention. His father's voice whispered in his head, "Keep moving, don't engage, they're not your problem." But something about the way the boy shivered made Darius's hands freeze on the steering wheel. Instead of driving away, he parked. Instead of walking past with his eyes averted, he approached. Instead of protecting himself first, he stopped protecting himself at all. "Excuse me," Darius said, and the woman looked up with the wary eyes of someone who'd learned that strangers rarely brought good news. "We're leaving," she said immediately. "I promise. We're not causing trouble." "I didn't say you were." Darius knelt down, expensive wool coat touching cold concrete, and found himself eye level with the boy. "What's your name?" The child looked at his mother for permission. She hesitated, then nodded. "Isaiah," the boy whispered, hugging his teddy bear tighter. "That's a strong name." Darius looked up at the woman. "And you are?" "Janelle," she said. Then, as if it mattered, as if she was still someone beyond her circumstances. "Janelle Simone Carter. How long have you been out here, Janelle?" Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. 6 months. We were staying with my sister until November. But she lost her apartment. We've been rotating between shelters when they have space. Sometimes here, sometimes the subway station on Broad Street. 6 months. This child had spent 6 months sleeping on concrete. "What happened?" Darius asked, though he already knew the shape of it. He'd seen enough annual reports, enough poverty statistics, enough data points, but he'd never looked at the face behind the numbers. "Isaiah got sick 2 years ago," Janelle said, her voice mechanical with repetition. "Pneumonia, then complications. I was a medical office manager, had insurance, but the bills—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "The bills buried us. I took time off to care for him. Lost my job in the downsizing. Couldn't find another one fast enough. Couldn't pay rent. Couldn't catch up. Couldn't stop falling. This wasn't someone born into poverty," Darius realized with uncomfortable clarity. This was someone who'd fallen from stability and couldn't climb back up, and she'd kept her dignity through every mile of the fall. "Mama," Isaiah said, his small voice cutting through the cold air. "Can we eat today?" The question was asked without drama, without tears. Just a child who'd learned that food wasn't guaranteed, checking on the day's possibilities. Janelle closed her eyes. "We'll see, baby. We'll see." Darius watched Isaiah shiver, and suddenly he was 8 years old again, sitting in his father's heated car, complaining that the restaurant was taking too long with their order. Always warm, always fed, always certain tomorrow would bring more of the same abundance. His father's voice. "The poor are dangerous. Desperation makes thieves of everyone." But another voice, quieter, more fragile. What if he was wrong? "Janelle," Darius said, making a decision that terrified him. "I want to try something, an experiment. Will you trust me?" She looked at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. "Trust you? I don't even know you." "I know," Darius said. "But maybe it's time I tested whether my father told me the truth, or just passed down unhealed wounds disguised as wisdom." Darius pulled out a sleek black platinum credit card with no spending limit and held it between them like a bridge between two worlds. Janelle stared at it like he'd just produced a weapon. "Sir, this has to be some kind of joke." "It's not." Darius kept the card extended, his hand steady even though his heart was racing. "I want to see something. I want to test something my father taught me my entire life." He took a breath, committed fully to the insanity of what he was about to do. "Take this card, it's yours for 24 hours. Buy whatever you want. No limits, no conditions, no questions asked." The security guard had stopped walking away and was now watching with open suspicion. The store manager appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, clearly wondering if he needed to intervene. Janelle pulled Isaiah closer, protective and confused. "Why would you do this? What do you want from us?" It was the right question. The smart question. The question that proved she hadn't lost her mind to desperation. "I want to see what someone with nothing does when given everything," Darius said, surprised by his own honesty. "I want to see if desperation really does reveal the thief in every human heart, like my father said, or if he was wrong. Prove him right or prove him wrong. Either way, I'll finally know the truth." "You're testing me?" Janelle's voice carried hurt beneath the disbelief. "You want to see if I'll steal from you? If I'll prove poor people are as bad as you think we are?" "I don't know what I think anymore," Darius admitted. "That's the problem. I've spent 41 years living by my father's rules, believing his truths, and I'm—" He stopped, vulnerable in a way that felt dangerous. "I'm empty. I have everything and I feel nothing." Maybe he was right. Maybe you'll take this card and drain my account and disappear, and I'll finally have proof that protecting myself was worth the loneliness. Or maybe what? Janelle whispered. Maybe he was wrong about everything that matters. Janelle's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the coins she'd been counting. Isaiah pressed his face against her side, watching the strange man with the card with wide, uncertain eyes. 24 hours, Darius said. "No pin needed. Just sign your name. Buy whatever you want. Food, clothes, hotel rooms, anything. And meet me back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. That's all." "That's all?" Janelle repeated. "You hand a homeless woman an unlimited credit card and just walk away?" "Yes." His father's voice roared in his head. "She'll drain your account, son. She'll disappear into the night. She'll show you exactly why I taught you never to trust the desperate. This is exactly the kind of mistake that proves you're too soft for this world. You'll regret this. You'll see." But the quieter voice whispered back, "What if she doesn't? What if he was wrong about everything? What if 41 years of isolation and cynicism were built on lies?" Janelle stared at the card like it might burn her. "I don't understand you. I don't understand any of this." "You don't have to understand. You just have to choose." Darius pressed the card into her palm. Her fingers were ice cold, rough from exposure, shaking like leaves in a storm. 24 hours, whatever you want. No judgment, no consequences. Just truth." The store manager called out, "Sir, is everything all right over there?" Fine, Darius called back, without looking away from Janelle. Everything's fine. But nothing was fine. Everything was terrifying and exhilarating and completely insane. Janelle closed her fingers around the card slowly, like someone touching fire for the first time. Why me? She asked, her voice breaking. Why us? Out of everyone in this city who needs help, why did you stop for us? Darius looked at Isaiah, shivering in his too-thin jacket, clutching his worn teddy bear with complete trust that his mother would somehow make everything okay. He thought about his own childhood, skiing in Aspen, summers in Martha's Vineyard, never once wondering if there would be dinner. Because I saw the way you hold your son, Darius said quietly. Because you apologized for existing. Because I need to know if the world is as cruel as I've been taught to believe it is. He stepped back, creating distance before he could change his mind. Prove my father right or prove him wrong. Either way, I'll finally know whether I've spent 41 years living by truth or lies. He turned and walked to his car, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Behind him, Janelle stood frozen, holding a piece of plastic that represented more money than she'd see in a lifetime. Darius didn't look back. If he looked back, he'd take it back. If he looked back, his father would win. The experiment had begun. Darius didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. The penthouse felt even more cavernous than usual. 3,500 square feet of marble and imported leather overlooking Philadelphia's glittering skyline, worth $4.2 million, cold as a tomb. He'd bought it 5 years ago because Forbes said it was a good investment. He'd decorated it with art because designers said it reflected good taste. He'd lived in it alone because that's what his father had taught him was safe. Tonight, it felt like a prison. He sat in his study with all the lights off except the blue glow of his phone screen, banking app open, watching for transactions. The card was linked to his personal account, the one he used for daily expenses, petty cash by his standards. Still, it had access to enough money to ruin him if someone wanted to try, or prove his father right or wrong. He wasn't sure which outcome terrified him more. 8 p.m. came and went. Nothing. 9 p.m. Still nothing. His father's warnings played on repeat in his head. She'll drain your account. She'll max it out on electronics she can resell, jewelry she can pawn, a shopping spree that proves exactly what desperate people become when given opportunity. You're a fool, Darius. A sentimental fool. 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. Not a single transaction. Why wasn't she spending? Was she afraid? Did she think it was a trap, that he'd press charges the moment she used it? Or was she planning something bigger, waiting for morning, for stores to open, for the chance to maximize every possible dollar? 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Darius paced from the study to the living room to the wall of windows that overlooked the city. Somewhere down there, Janelle and Isaiah were, what? Still on the street? In a shelter? Had she even tried to use the card? Had she thrown it away, too proud or too scared to trust a stranger's insanity? At 4 a.m., he stood at the window and barely recognized his own reflection. When had he become this person? This man who tested homeless mothers like lab rats? This man who needed receipts and transactions to believe in basic human decency? His father would be proud or disgusted. Darius couldn't tell the difference anymore. Then at 7:34 p.m., nearly 24 hours after he'd handed over the card, his phone buzzed. Transaction, $47.23. Target. Darius's pulse spiked. His hands trembled as he clicked for details, but the app only showed the amount and location. Not what was purchased, not why, just numbers. 8:16 p.m., another buzz. Transaction, $38.91. CVS, 8:52 p.m. Transaction, $127.45. Walmart. His father's voice. Here it comes. The flood. She started, and she won't stop until there's nothing left. But Darius stared at the amounts. $47.23, $38.91, $127.45, and felt confused instead of vindicated. These weren't the transactions of someone drunk on sudden wealth. These weren't electronics or jewelry or luxury items. These were modest amounts, practical purchases, the spending pattern of someone desperately careful even with unlimited resources. Someone still operating from a mindset of scarcity despite having access to everything. 9:23 p.m. Transaction 44-18, Joe's Community Grocery. That one confused him. Too small for a major shopping trip, too random. What was at an independent grocery store that she couldn't get at Target or Walmart? Then, just before midnight, one final notification. Transaction 175 ZARs. Community Hope Shelter. Donation. Darius stared at his phone screen until the words stopped making sense. She donated money. A homeless woman given unlimited wealth for 24 hours, and she donated to a shelter. Not to herself. Not for her son. Not for survival or comfort or escape. For other people. For strangers who were struggling just like she was. Something cracked in Darius's chest. A hairline fracture in the ice that had been forming around his heart for 41 years. He stood at the window, watching Philadelphia sleep. Watching lights flicker in windows where people lived lives he knew nothing about. Families, struggles, small acts of kindness that never made headlines or earned tax deductions. What if my father was wrong? The question was terrifying. If his father was wrong about poor people being inherently untrustworthy, what else had he been wrong about? What else had Darius built his entire life around that was just inherited trauma disguised as wisdom? What if 41 years of cynicism, isolation, and calculated living were built on a foundation of lies? What if I've been protecting myself from humanity when I should have been embracing it? The sun rose over Philadelphia, indifferent to revelation. Darius had less than 12 hours until their meeting. Less than 12 hours to decide what it meant that a homeless woman had shown more restraint, more generosity, more humanity than anyone in his entire social circle. Less than 12 hours to decide if he was brave enough to let his father's teachings die. The next evening, Darius arrived at the grocery store 30 minutes early, and his entire world changed. He parked in the same spot, engine idling, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing left in his universe. 5:30 p.m. She probably wouldn't arrive until closer to 6. That gave him time to prepare, to steel himself for whatever truth was coming. At 5:45 p.m., he saw them approaching from down the block, and his breath caught. Isaiah was wearing a brand new winter coat, bright blue with a fur-lined hood that actually fit him. Real boots, waterproof, the right size, clean clothes underneath. But it was his face that looked most different. Fed, rested, hopeful. The exhaustion that had carved lines into a 7-year-old's features had softened into something almost like childhood. He clutched a new stuffed animal in one hand, a small elephant, while his other arm held tight to his old teddy bear. Not replacing it, keeping both. Janelle walked beside him, carrying several shopping bags, looking exhausted but relieved in a way that made Darius's throat tight. She spotted his car, and her pace faltered, uncertainty crossing her features. Darius got out, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his temples. "Mr. Whitmore," Janelle said immediately, already reaching into her pocket. "I was going to return it. I promise I was. I just needed to get a few things first. Basic things. Necessary things." She held out the credit card with trembling hands, like evidence of a crime. "Keep it," Darius said gently. "You still have a few hours left." "I don't understand you," Janelle whispered. "I don't understand any of this." "Show me what you bought." His voice came out rougher than intended. "I need to see the receipts." Fear flashed across her face, the fear of someone certain they'd done something wrong, but unsure what. Her hands shook as she pulled crumpled receipts from her pocket and held them out. Darius took them, and his hands began to shake too. Target, 4723. Children's winter coat, size 7. Children's waterproof boots, size 2. CVS, 3891. Children's multivitamin. Children's cold medicine. First aid kit. Toothbrushes, toothpaste, soap, shampoo. Walmart, $127.45. Groceries: bread, peanut butter, milk, eggs, apples, granola bars, juice boxes, children's underwear and socks, stuffed elephant, coloring books, crayons, notebook, pencils. Joe's Community Grocery, $44.18. Note at bottom: customer requested to pay for elderly man's order. Items: medication copay, soup, bread, coffee. Community Hope Shelter, $175. Donation. Note: in gratitude for the times they helped us. The receipts blurred. Darius blinked hard, trying to focus, but the numbers kept swimming. Less than $600. Less than $600 from unlimited wealth. You didn't buy anything for yourself, he said, his voice breaking. Not a single thing just for you. Janelle's tears came fast now, streaming down her face. Isaiah comes first. He always comes first. I can manage with what I have, but he deserves to be warm, to be fed, to be a child instead of carrying the weight of our situation. Darius pointed to the fourth receipt with a shaking finger. You paid for someone else? You're homeless? You have unlimited wealth for 24 hours, and you paid for a stranger? His name is Mr. Washington, Janelle said. He's a veteran. I see him at the shelter sometimes. He was trying to choose between his medication and food. I couldn't walk past that. I know what it feels like when everyone walks past you like you're invisible. And the shelter donation? They've helped us when they had space. They're always full, always running out of supplies, always trying to help more people than they can. If I could give back even a little, even for one day, I had to. Her voice cracked. There are women there with babies, elderly people with disabilities, teenagers who've aged out of foster care. Some of them have it so much worse than we do. The receipts fell from Darius's hands, scattering across the concrete. His father's voice, the one that had been his constant companion for 41 years, went completely silent, obliterated by the truth printed on thermal paper. This woman who had every reason to be selfish, every justification to think only of herself and her son, every excuse to exploit unlimited wealth, she'd chosen restraint, dignity, generosity, love. The experiment wasn't testing her, it was testing him, and she'd passed beautifully while he'd been failing for 41 years. Darius began to cry for the first time since his father's funeral. But these weren't tears of grief. They were tears of revelation, of liberation, of finally seeing truth after decades of living in his father's shadow. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry I tested you. Come with me, both of you, please. The words tumbled out before Darius could stop them, driven purely by emotion rather than calculation. No planning, no strategy, just desperate need to fix something he hadn't broken, but could no longer ignore. Janelle's immediate response was fear. Where? Why? What do you want from us? Isaiah grabbed his mother's hand tightly, the protective gesture of a child who'd learned too young that adults couldn't always be trusted. Darius knelt down on the cold concrete, bringing himself to Isaiah's eye level. I want to help your mom. I want to make sure you're never cold again, never hungry again. Is that okay? Isaiah studied him with those impossibly old eyes. Why? God, the questions children asked, the ones that cut straight to truth. Because your mama taught me something important tonight, Darius said, his voice thick. She reminded me that being poor doesn't make someone bad. It just makes them unlucky. And I have enough luck for all of us. Janelle made a sound, something between a sob and a laugh, and suddenly she was crying. Really crying. Not the careful, silent tears she'd shed before, but the kind of crying that comes from months of holding everything together, trying to stay strong for a child, finally crumbling because someone sees her, truly sees her. Somewhere warm, Darius said, standing, speaking to both of them now. Somewhere safe. Somewhere you can finally rest. No conditions, no expectations, just basic human decency that should have been offered months ago. 20 minutes later, they stood in the lobby of the Hyatt downtown. Not the Four Seasons. Nothing overwhelming. Just somewhere nice and clean and warm. Darius booked a 2-room suite without asking the price, because the price didn't matter. When they reached the room, Isaiah ran inside immediately, Unburdened by adult disbelief, he touched everything with wonder: the velvet couch, the clean towels stacked in the bathroom, the TV remote with its dozens of buttons. "Mama, look!" he called from the bathroom doorway. "There's a bathtub, a really big one, like in the movies." But Janelle stood frozen at the threshold, unable to cross. "It's yours," Darius said gently. "It's real. You're safe here." She took one step inside, then another. Moving like someone walking through a dream that might shatter, she set down the plastic bags that held everything she owned, literally everything that remained of her previous life, and turned to Darius with tears streaming freely. "What do you want from us?" she whispered. "Really? Nobody does this without wanting something." "I don't want anything. I want to give something." Darius found he meant it completely. "You gave me back my faith in humanity. You showed me that my father was wrong about everything that actually matters. Let me help you rebuild. That's all. Just let me help. I don't even know your full name." Darius Emmanuel Whitmore. He smiled despite the tears still wet on his own face. "And you just taught me more about being human than 41 years of living ever did." Isaiah had discovered the TV now, flipping through channels with delight at each new image that appeared. "Rest tonight," Darius said. "Really rest. Order room service, take hot showers, sleep in a real bed. Tomorrow morning, we'll figure out the next steps: housing, employment, school for Isaiah, healthcare, stability." He paused, making sure she heard him. "None of this has to be temporary unless you want it to be." Janelle stared at him like he'd just spoken a language she'd forgotten existed. "Why would you do all this for strangers?" "You're not strangers anymore," Darius said simply. "You're the people who saved me from becoming my father. You're the people who showed me there's still goodness in this world. You matter. Isaiah matters. And I have the resources to prove it." When he left an hour later, Isaiah was already curled up on the couch with both his teddy bears. The old one he'd carried through 6 months of homelessness, and Stella the elephant tucked under his arm. His eyes were heavy, fighting sleep because sleep meant missing something wonderful. Janelle stood at the window overlooking the Philadelphia skyline, her reflection ghostly in the glass. For the first time in 6 months, she allowed herself to hope. Darius walked to his car, his chest feeling lighter than it had in years. "I came here tonight expecting to find confirmation of cynicism," he thought. "Instead, I found proof that humanity is still worth believing in, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that lesson." His father's voice was silent now, and in that silence, Darius finally felt free. By morning, Darius had transformed from passive observer to active architect of change. At 6 a.m., he sat in his home office with coffee going cold beside him, making calls. Not to lawyers or accountants, but to people who actually helped: social workers, housing advocates, job placement specialists, education coordinators. He used his name not as a weapon, but as a key, opening doors that had been slammed in Janelle's face for 6 months. By 9 a.m., he had options: real, tangible, sustainable options. He returned to the hotel carrying coffee and a bag of fresh pastries from a bakery he thought Isaiah would love. When Janelle opened the door, she looked transformed. Not in appearance. She still wore the same worn clothes, but in posture. Her shoulders didn't carry quite so much weight. Isaiah sat at the small table, eating room service pancakes, chattering excitedly about all the TV channels and how the bathtub had jets that made bubbles. Darius spread papers across the table, while Janelle poured coffee with shaking hands. "Three-bedroom apartment," he began, pointing to the listing. "Safe neighborhood, good schools nearby. Subsidized initially, but there's a pathway to full independence once you're working. It's yours if you want it." Janelle's tears started immediately. "Job training program," he continued gently. "Medical coding and billing. Matches your previous experience. 6-month certification, then placement assistance. Philadelphia General has already expressed interest." "How?" Janelle couldn't finish the question. "Isaiah enrolls at Greenfield Elementary. Breakfast program, after-school care, tutoring support." Summer camp while you're working. Healthcare coverage for both of you, including mental health support. He paused, making sure she was hearing him. This isn't charity, Janelle. This is an investment in your future. You're intelligent, capable, and resilient. You just need a foundation to rebuild from. A place to stand so you can start climbing again. How can I ever repay you? She whispered. You already have. Darius met her eyes. You showed me that my father's teachings were lies. You proved that goodness exists in people, even when they've lost everything. You gave me something to believe in again. That's worth more than money. Janelle shook her head. I just bought what Isaiah needed. Exactly. Darius leaned forward. You had unlimited wealth, and you chose love over greed. You chose dignity over exploitation. You chose to help others, even when you're the one who needs help most. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How many people would have drained that account and disappeared? He's all I have, Janelle said, glancing at Isaiah, who was now building a tower with sugar packets. He's all that matters. Every choice I make, it's all for him. I know, Darius said quietly. I saw it in those receipts. I saw it in the way you hold him. I saw it in the donation to the shelter. You could have taken everything, but you gave instead. That's not just good, Janelle. That's extraordinary. 3 weeks later, Darius stood in a third-floor apartment, helping assemble IKEA furniture, while Isaiah supervised by arranging his stuffed animals on every flat surface and declaring each spot decorated. He takes interior design very seriously, Janelle said, laughing as Isaiah moved Stella the elephant for the 5th time. Darius laughed too. Genuine, unforced, the kind of laughter he hadn't experienced in years. The apartment wasn't luxury. Laminate counters, builder-grade carpet, fixtures from a catalog. But it was clean, safe, and theirs. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen, playground visible from the living room window. That evening, after Isaiah fell asleep in his new bed, his very first bed that was truly his own, Janelle and Darius sat in the small living room with exhaustion and gratitude hanging between them. I start the workforce development program Monday, Janelle said. Medical coding and billing, stable work, good benefits, clear career path. You're going to be incredible at it, Darius said. I know you will. Janelle looked around the apartment, her eyes glistening. I keep waiting to wake up back at the subway entrance, to realize this was all some elaborate dream I had while freezing on concrete. It's real, Darius assured her. It's yours. No one can take it away. She turned to face him, her voice breaking around the edges. Why did you choose us? Out of everyone in Philadelphia who's struggling, everyone who needs help, why me and Isaiah? Darius thought about his mother, gone too young, leaving him alone with a father who'd turned love into strategy. He thought about the way Janelle had held Isaiah that first night, like he was the only thing that mattered in the universe. Because you looked at your son the way my mother used to look at me, he said quietly. Before she died, before my father turned cold and bitter. You looked at Isaiah like nothing else in the world existed, like you'd burn down the universe to keep him safe. And I realized I'd spent 41 years believing people like you didn't exist anymore. People who stay good even when the world gives them every reason to be bitter. For the first time in his life, Darius Emmanuel Whitmore felt useful. Not powerful, not impressive, just useful, just present, just human. And it was enough. Months passed, and everything changed. Not suddenly, but steadily, like winter giving way to spring. Janelle completed her workforce development program with honors and landed a position at Philadelphia General Hospital as a medical billing specialist. The day she received her first paycheck, she called Darius crying so hard he could barely understand her. Not tears of sadness, but of pride, of earned dignity, of knowing she'd climbed back up through her own effort and capability. She built friendships with coworkers, created community where there'd been isolation. She attended parent-teacher conferences and volunteered at Isaiah's school bake sales. She learned slowly to accept help without shame, to trust that stability wasn't temporary, that the ground beneath her feet wouldn't suddenly disappear. Isaiah thrived in second grade. reading above grade level, making friends who invited him to birthday parties and play dates. He joined the after-school art program and discovered he loved drawing, especially detailed pictures of families and houses and playgrounds. He no longer carried the weight of homelessness in his small shoulders. He smiled easily, laughed freely, acted like the child he finally had permission to be. But he still carried his original worn teddy bear everywhere, a reminder of resilience, of where they'd been, of what they'd survived together. Darius visited often, not as a benefactor checking on an investment, but as a friend who showed up for the small moments that mattered. He attended Isaiah's school art show and stood in front of a drawing titled My Family. A woman, a small boy, and a tall man in a suit, all holding hands under a sun that took up half the page. He helped when the kitchen sink started leaking, arriving with tools and YouTube tutorials, the two of them laughing as they got soaked trying to fix the pipes. He shared simple meals, takeout pizza on Friday nights, Janelle's homemade dinners on Sundays, pancake breakfasts on Saturday mornings, when Isaiah insisted on adding chocolate chips to everything. He showed up on difficult days without being asked. Somehow, he just knew, and he learned things about himself he'd never known. That he preferred their modest apartment to his penthouse, that children's laughter was better than board meeting applause, that watching someone rebuild their life was more satisfying than watching his stock portfolio grow. At Isaiah's school talent show, the boy performed a poem he'd written himself. My mom is brave. She kept me safe when we had nowhere to go. Then a kind stranger stopped his car and helped us find a home. Now I'm not cold anymore. Now I can be a kid. The audience applauded politely. Darius cried openly. Thanksgiving arrived, and Darius brought wine to Janelle's apartment while she cooked her grandmother's recipes: collard greens, mac and cheese, sweet potato pie. They created new traditions around her small table, Isaiah saying grace with a solemnity that made them both smile. Isaiah's 8th birthday party was a small gathering of school friends in the apartment's community room. Darius helped organize games, wore a paper party hat without self-consciousness, and realized he'd never felt more himself than when he was helping a group of 8-year-olds play musical chairs. Late one evening, after Isaiah had fallen asleep, Janelle and Darius sat in the living room talking about their childhoods, their fathers, the weight of inherited trauma that shaped people in ways they didn't always recognize. My father taught me that vulnerability was weakness, Darius said quietly. But being here with you and Isaiah, I realize vulnerability is actually courage. You've been vulnerable with me from the beginning, letting me see your struggle, accepting help, trusting a stranger. That took more strength than anything I've ever done. One evening, months after they'd met, Janelle pulled something from her wallet, Darius's platinum credit card, kept folded carefully like a talisman. I know I should have returned this months ago, she said, but I kept it. I was scared that if I gave it back, all of this would disappear. That it was only real as long as I held on to this piece of plastic. Darius gently closed her fingers back around it. Keep it. Emergency fund. For Isaiah, for unexpected expenses, for peace of mind. I can't. This is too much. You've proven exactly what you do with it, Darius insisted. You've proven I can trust you more than I trust most people I've known for decades. It's not about the money, it's about knowing you're protected, that if something happens, you have resources. Please, let me have this peace of mind. Janelle's tears came again. You really mean that? Completely, she whispered through her smile. You're the strangest billionaire I've ever met. How many billionaires have you met? Just you? But I'm pretty sure you're the strange one. She laughed, wiping her eyes. And I'm grateful for it. Darius realized that somewhere in the past months, the benefactor-recipient dynamic had transformed into genuine friendship. Then into something deeper. Chosen family. They were healing from different wounds through authentic connection. And he finally understood. Wealth's true purpose wasn't accumulation or protection. It was connection, service, and the multiplication of meaning in other people's lives. His father had been wrong about everything that mattered. And Darius had never been more grateful to be proven wrong, too. 2 years later, Darius Emmanuel Whitmore stood at a podium and announced the most important business venture of his life. The press conference at Whitmore Global Enterprises headquarters drew hundreds: investors, journalists, philanthropists, politicians, community leaders, all waiting to hear what the billionaire CEO considered worth their time. The Whitmore Initiative for Single-Parent Empowerment, Darius began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Comprehensive support for single parents facing homelessness, emergency housing with no bureaucracy, no degrading applications, job training matched to skills and interests, childcare support, educational resources, healthcare coverage including mental health, legal assistance navigating systems, mentorship from people with lived experience, a pathway to sustained independence and dignity. He paused, looking out at the crowd. No applications designed to humiliate, no hoops designed to exhaust, no bureaucracy designed to discourage, just help extended with dignity to people who've been failed by every other system. Because poverty isn't a moral failure, it's a circumstance, and circumstances can change when we choose to see people as humans rather than statistics. In the front row sat Janelle in a simple but elegant navy blue dress she'd bought with her own paycheck. Isaiah, now 9 years old, sat beside her in a shirt and tie, his proud smile lighting up his face. Her expression showed pride, gratitude, and disbelief that she was part of something this significant. The person leading this initiative, Darius continued, his eyes finding Janelle's, isn't someone who studied poverty from a university office or read about it in policy papers. She's someone who lived it, who survived it, who maintained her dignity and humanity through 6 months of homelessness, who, when given unlimited wealth for 24 hours, chose restraint, generosity, and love. His voice caught. Her lived experience, her wisdom, and her compassion will guide this work. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Program Director of Family Services, Janelle Simone Carter. The applause was thunderous. Janelle walked to the podium on shaking legs, tears already streaming down her face. 2 years ago, she began, her voice trembling but strong. I was counting coins outside a grocery store, trying to keep my son warm, wondering if we'd survive the winter. A stranger gave me his credit card and trusted me. He didn't know me. He had every reason to believe the worst about me. But he chose to believe the best. She wiped her eyes. And that choice changed everything. Not just because of the money or resources, though those mattered, but because he saw me. He saw my son. He treated us like humans worthy of dignity. This foundation will do the same for thousands of families. We'll see them. We'll believe in them. We'll help them stand. Because everyone deserves what Darius gave us. A chance. From the audience, Isaiah raised his hand with earnest innocence. Does this mean other kids won't have to be cold anymore? He asked. Will they have homes? The room went silent. Every adult reminded of what truly mattered. Darius knelt to Isaiah's level. Yes, sweetheart, that's exactly what it means. Because of your mom. Because she reminded me what helping actually means. Good, Isaiah said simply. Nobody should have to be cold, or scared, or hungry. Spontaneous applause erupted. Many people wiped their eyes. After the press conference, reporters swarmed with questions. But Darius only cared about 2 people. He found them outside near the fountain, and Isaiah ran to him immediately, wrapping small arms around his waist. You're like family now, right? Isaiah said. Mama says you're family. Darius felt the last frozen piece in his chest finally melt. Right, I'm family. Janelle joined them, 3 people standing together in the fading afternoon light. You did it, she whispered. You're really going to help so many families. We're doing it, Darius corrected. I provide resources. You provide wisdom. Together, we'll prove that poverty doesn't have to be permanent, that desperation doesn't have to be destiny. They walked through Philadelphia together as the sun set, Isaiah between them, holding both their hands, swinging between them, laughing. Darius carried Isaiah's backpack. Janelle's arm linked through his other arm. Not billionaire and recipient, not benefactor and charity case, just family. Three people who found each other when they all needed finding. They walked past the very grocery store where everything changed. My father taught me that trust was weakness, that kindness was naive, that the poor would destroy anyone foolish enough to help them, Darius thought. But Janelle taught me something different, something true, that wealth without compassion is just numbers, that power without purpose is just noise, that the richest thing a person can own isn't money, it's the ability to look someone in the eyes and say, I see you, you matter, I'll help you stand. The test I designed for Janelle was actually a test for myself. She passed by being herself. I passed by finally letting go of my father's poison and choosing to trust, to connect, to love. He'd stopped walking that February evening, thinking he was going to prove a theory about human nature. Instead, he'd proven that sometimes the poorest people possess the richest hearts, and that the only poverty that truly matters is poverty of spirit, which he'd been suffering from for 41 years, until a homeless woman and her son showed him the way home. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment telling us what touched your heart the most. Stories like this remind us that humanity is still worth believing in. See you in the next one.